I would argue that it's not a truck. I would argue that it is a modern Jeep Scrambler. So it's capable off-road, and it's got a bed, but it's pretty worthless as a truck.
I need to see one in person.
Hey everybody, it's Doc, and welcome to the channel. So today, Patty and I are out ambling around in inarguably one of the most historic four-wheel drive vehicles ever, the FJ40. And we're discussing the emergence of one of the newest, most historic four-wheel drive vehicles ever.
Yes.
The Cybertruck.
Not the most attractive vehicle ever.
Well, yeah. And to preface this conversation, I am probably one of the greatest cheerleaders for the Cybertruck, and Patty is not.
Strictly from an aesthetic point of view.
Well, and I felt that way when it first came out, that, man, this thing's ugly. And then I looked at the stats, and it was super impressive just from a statistic point of view, and I fell in love with it for that. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because, the big news with the Cybertruck these days is probably more the disappointment that people are having in it than the actual truck itself. Mm-hmm. And we've watched a number of the videos. We've done a lot of reviews on this channel, but we've never done a review on a vehicle or a thing that we haven't seen or touched yet. So we may be reaching out a little bit against our wheelhouse, but we're going to do it anyways, because I think there's things that should be addressed, things that should be tempered, and things that I'm really concerned about. So I've had a Cybertruck reservation for 3 years now, almost exactly. I'm probably number 650,000 in line, so I probably won't see my Cybertruck for 2-3 years. And to be honest, that doesn't make me unhappy, because what I'm seeing right now, I'm not really all that thrilled with.
Right.
And I'm hoping that with time, things will change. So probably one of the biggest complaints that all the Tesla fanboys have is the price. And the price is probably the thing that concerns me least, because 4 years ago is 4 years ago, and it's pre-pandemic. There was not a supply chain issue, and then of course we've got inflation. So I think that the price of the Cybertruck now probably falls in line with about the amount of time that has passed.
Sure.
So not a huge deal. Mm-hmm. But there were promises made, there were inferences made, and the Cybertruck has kind of fallen through on a lot of those. And the biggest one, the biggest concern besides the price is the range. Mm-hmm. And the reason I signed up for the tri-motor at the time, which I think was $79,000 at the time, was essentially Elon was promising 500 plus miles. And so in rural America, 500 plus miles would be about, actually at least 400 plus would be right. Perfect. Mm-hmm. And we owned a Tesla for a year. We owned a Model Y, and when I got out of the Model Y, probably the one big promise I made for myself was I would not own an electric vehicle, or an electric only vehicle, unless it had 400 miles.
I think a lot of
range.
that is because of where we live, and I agree that was one of the drawbacks of that vehicle. I enjoyed that car a lot. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun to drive, but yeah, the distance issue, just trying to get from one side of Iowa to the other at the time.
And the lack of charging stations.
Correct, was a difficult task.
And that has changed a little bit, but really not nearly enough. And also one of the things that I hoped for with the new Cybertruck was the fact that they would fix the towing thing. And I thought mm-hmm. that it had taken so long for them to bring out the Cybertruck. I convinced myself the reason that they were waiting so long was they were addressing the towing issue, mm-hmm. and there was going to be some new innovation, like a transmission or something, that was going to help reduce the loss of energy when towing.
You thought they heard you.
Yeah, I thought they heard me. They didn't. They didn't. And so, so Elon's answer to range, and this is insane, is the fact that What he wants to do is he wants to put another battery pack in the bed of the pickup truck, and the battery pack will take up 30% of the bed, probably more.
That's valuable space.
That
vehicle, that's what the purpose of that vehicle is for.
That's why you have a truck, okay? Right. And then on top of it, since it's a battery, it's going to be heavy.
Sure.
So we're talking maybe adding another 1,000 pounds to the truck.
And it's heavy to begin with.
It can't be slid in and slid out of the bed as far as it sounds. And it sounds like it's going to have to be hardwired in. So, essentially, it's going to become a fixture in the truck, and you can't remove it to make room if you need less range and more storage area in the cargo area. So that is insanity. And realistically, the answer to that would have been, hopefully the aftermarket companies will take advantage of this. The answer would be a generator, maybe a small battery pack with the generator that could be lifted into the back of the truck, say by two people or a small forklift, slid in, plugged in, and used and then taken out if you don't need it. So I'm hoping in the next 2 years that gets addressed. Will it? I don't know. And if it doesn't, again, that's a big issue. That range is a huge issue with us.
Well, and I joke about the looks of the vehicle, but in honesty, I pretty much figured we'd always have one anyway, and I would adjust. It's futuristic, so we're all supposed to adjust to the future, what's going to come. But there are a lot of other valid points that you have concerning other aspects of the vehicle, including that.
Well, again, promises made, not fulfilled.
Right.
And those are probably the two biggest promises, the price and the range, that have not been fulfilled. One doesn't concern me much, the other one concerns me a lot more. And then, there were inferences that, and this is, for truck people and for, who owns vehicles with lots of cargo area? Pet owners.
True. And
what does every Tesla owner want to do in their vehicle, it seems like? They want to camp in it. I don't get it. I don't get it, but they want to. And Elon had at one point made the inference that the bed area would be climate controlled. And there was also the inference made that there would be a mid-gate much like an Avalanche.
Sure.
And that would have been brilliant. Yeah. Even if you could have just rolled down the rear window.
Yes.
And been able to
climate control
that space. Correct. That would have been really, really nice, particularly, like I said, for people who have dogs or people who camp. And that didn't, as far as we know, that didn't happen. I do have to throw that little caveat into this, since the trucks have not been fully reviewed, there may be little things that we talk about that Elon and friends have discussed and fixed. But I don't know. And the other big discussion that we have is, since we live in Iowa, we live in the ice belt, we get snow here, and of course, there's a whole lot of America that gets a lot more snow than we do.
Absolutely.
And a lot more cold weather. And that truck, again, much like our Model Y, is pretty much designed by people from the South. And it acts like it's designed from the South. And in the Tesla, in the Cybertruck's case, I don't think they had a lot of truck people involved.
I have to agree with that.
Because truck people, like you talked about with the cover over the bed, the tonneau cover over the bed,
how it rolls up. That's awesome. But in the middle of the wintertime, it would just brush all of that snow right into the bed of the pickup truck.
Right.
There it all goes. And that would be something that would happen to me. So that's
so is it heated? That would
the
probably be the
cover?
answer. Is it heated? Maybe not.
I don't know.
But I think that was overlooked. Much like every time we opened the back of the Model Y, remember what would happen? All the snow would roll into the back of the Model Y.
That's right.
Again, designed by people who have no experience with snow.
Correct.
And you can say, well, they tested these in the Antarctic and stuff like that or whatever. Well, you know what? Every picture I saw of them testing those vehicles in the snow, it wasn't snowing.
No, it wasn't northern Minnesota or something like that. Right. Even the button on the back that you activate to make the tonneau cover go up. It's just a flat button on the back of the vehicle. I mean,
That's gonna get covered with
3
snow and
months
ice.
of the year that, we wouldn't be able to punch that button because it would be covered in ice.
I suppose maybe the app would, you could operate it from the app.
Yeah, I mean, we can complain about these little things that we have no idea how they would actually function in the snow, but it does seem like there's a little, oversight in a few areas.
And I remember really early on when they had the initial designs of Cybertruck and it had door handles. Okay.
Yeah.
It had door handles from a Model S at that point, and Elon talked about not having door handles at all. And I told you, and you may remember this, he's going to screw this up. He's going to screw it up. And so what did we get? Well, we got no door handles and a little button.
Push buttons.
Well, are they push buttons or are they heat sensitive? I don't know. That's not going to work so great in the wintertime if they're just heat sensitive. And now the only, and so when the door opens, you actually have to grab the metal of the door.
Yes, the door itself.
The door itself.
The frame.
And so you're going to get fingerprints all over, just like you hate on the refrigerator.
Exactly. It's gonna.
They don't want to put holes in, put as few holes in the stainless as possible. So I get it from a price standpoint, but in the same respect, they just kind of ignored the people at the North. Period. And I think that's why the big car companies, were mostly centered out of Detroit, and they knew how to make cold weather vehicles. So there's that, and then while we're on the subject of cold and snow, so what did they do for headlights of this vehicle? You've got this great big light bar on the front for daytime running lights, but those are not your headlights.
I know. I thought that's where the headlights were coming out of.
Right. No, the headlights are down by the bumper, and I think they're 1.75 centimeters wide, which is 3/4 of an inch, maybe.
Yeah.
And what's that? What is the place that clogs up the quickest when you're driving in a snowstorm? It's the area right by the bumper. And so literally, again, unless that's heated, there's going to be problems with that. The other part, back to the doors, which we were watching one of the engineers, and he talked about how the doors pop open, and he made the comment that the door can pop open through a 1/2 inch of ice. I'm going to be skeptical about that, and the reason I'm skeptical about that is not because of the door mechanism, but it's the window mechanism of the window has to pop out, roll down a little bit to open the door.
Like on the Bronco.
Right. And what is your most hated feature on the Bronco?
It's that the wind noise.
I thought you were going to say the top.
Oh, the top. Well, the creaky, the top creaks.
The creaky top.
But the windows, because of the way they function, I mean, it was a great idea engineering-wise, but they're not completely sealed or something. They whistle quite a bit. And
they freeze.
And it's because they're frameless.
Right.
And,
So the only difference is, in the Bronco, it made sense to make the windows frameless because it makes it easier to take the doors off. In the Tesla, the only reason they made the doors frameless probably was because it was easier from a manufacturing standpoint.
Probably.
Again, foregoing necessity for ease of manufacture. And, again, that's going to be an issue. That's just going to be an issue.
So I have a question. We're talking about the bed of that particular vehicle and how little space there is in it once you put like an additional battery in the back. What if then you want to take a spare tire with you? That's going to take up more space.
Well,
why?
Which is another thing with Tesla. Tesla refuses to at least give you a space to put a spare tire in.
Right.
I don't care if you supply the spare tire or not, but at least give me a space to put it.
True.
They gave you what they call, I think it's a smuggler's vault or something like that, which is an area underneath the bed, but it's not big enough for a spare tire or anything like that. And then on top of it, the option of the spare tire is like $2,000 for a spare tire.
Those are some fancy tires they have on there.
Well, and that brings up another point, which is
more points.
Why would you design an entire tire to go around a hubcap?
True.
90% of those, when those tires wear out, no one's going to replace them with the fancy notch tires,
Right.
because they're stupid. Okay. It's just a dumb thing. Then let's see. Well, then we got the charge port in the mud flap,
Oh yeah.
or
that
not the mud
was
flap, in the
surround.
flares.
The flare, yeah.
And again, living on the gravel, what is the sloppiest part of the car is the mud flare.
Yep.
Because it's a flare and it collects mud. And the engineer said, well, it's sealed. There's actually some weather stripping in there to keep it safe. That doesn't stop stuff from slopping into it when you open it up. So I think that was a bit of an oversight. And the other ridiculous part of that vehicle is the big 4-foot wiper blade on the windshield.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
I did catch that. They said it's almost 4 feet long.
yeah. Well, the engineers were really proud of it because they're like, by the way, with that up there, that actually improves the aerodynamics of the vehicle by changing the wind pattern over that or something like that. And like, well, let's talk about cleaning the window, okay? And this may work in Southern California or Texas because what do you get? You get rain. What do we get up here? We get slop. We get...
Well, after, on the road, too, all that road grime and slop from the semi-trucks that, flies off the tops of them in the wintertime, and it's a messy
We get rocks
situation.
tossed at us. I don't think that, any vehicle that we've had that had a flat windshield, the windshield survived longer than 3 months after buying it new.
Now, they said that windshield's not completely flat. It's got a little bit of a curve in it.
Well, I'm sure this one does too. And yeah, that's a big, expensive windshield.
I know, it's giant.
So again, I'm hoping that the aftermarket companies take a hard look at that windshield and figure out how to maybe incorporate 2 shorter wipers in there, because that 4-foot wiper is going to have to be like $100.
Well, and that's just it.
Crazy.
Everything on the vehicle is so specialized. I mean, you might not even be able to find a replacement wiper when you need it for that vehicle. Everything is... It's going to be specific to that vehicle.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be out there, but I'm sure it will be very, very expensive, which, it's kind of like the Tesla tax.
Yeah, right.
It's got Tesla on it, so it's going to be extra expensive.
Exactly.
The other only major concern I have, or not really concern, but the fact that when Elon developed this vehicle, when him and Franz developed this vehicle, the original design was an exoskeleton, where the entire body was an exoskeleton, essentially set on a frame. And that gave it a lot of rigidity. That was going to make it, just this magnificent, super safe vehicle. And what did we get? We got a vehicle with an exoskeleton, but not.
Right.
It's an exoskeleton with a skin on it, which makes it really not an exoskeleton. And that, I can see, again, from a manufacturing standpoint, they probably had to do that. But from an engineering and innovative perspective, they kind of dropped the ball. Because I think that would have been a really, really cool feature of that vehicle that most people probably wouldn't even realize was there, to be honest. Then there's the steering.
Yes.
Right? So we did get a bonus. One thing that Elon didn't promise that we got 4-wheel steering.
True.
And, he believes it's very innovative, and I think the jury's kind of out, but it's going to be steering by wire. So there'll be no connection between the steering wheel and the actual turning devices on the truck. I'm a little bit nervous about that.
Well, I was going to say, I'm sure those engineers have a lot more education than I do, but I have issues with the automatic drive myself.
Well,
I'd like to have my hands on.
Tesla kind of has a history of experimenting with their customers. And, that goes back to full self-driving, where oh, someone just drove into a semi and broadsided it because autopilot thought that was the horizon, instead of instead of a semi.
Sure.
And whoops, I guess we learned something from that. But it killed a dude.
Yeah.
And there have been multiple cases of that with full self-driving, and it doesn't seem like anybody seems to be all that concerned because, they had a lapse in attention maybe.
Well, and
what happens,
you're a huge advocate for auto cruise and stuff like that.
I do. I love autopilot, and I love Super Cruise, and I love Toyota Safety Sense.
Yeah.
And I love the little discrepancies between them. Mm-hmm. Which is the little idiosyncrasies, which is kind of fun. The thing is, they should be safe. They should be safe. We shouldn't be experimenting with our customers' lives to make sure that, to determine whether it's okay. So whether that works out for driving by wire, steering by wire, I don't know. But again, I'm glad that it's only going to be 2 or 3 years before we see our Cybertruck.
Right.
And then hopefully things are ironed out quite a bit.
Absolutely.
And the price, knowing Tesla, the price will actually drop because the more the vehicles they make, the better they get at production. They do tend to pass that on to the customers, and that would be really, really nice. I don't know if we'll see it or not, but you never know. But anyways, we were out chatting. We've been married for 40 years, and we have important conversations like what defines a sandwich, what defines half a sandwich.
Exactly.
Is a Bronco an SUV or a truck?
Oh, don't get me started. Don't get me started. At least the Cybertruck has a bed. That makes it a truck.
It's true. I would argue that it's not a truck. I would argue that it is a modern Jeep Scrambler. So it's capable off-road, and it's got a bed, but it's pretty worthless as a truck.
I need to see one in person. I need to see the height of it. I'm concerned it's a glorified El Camino, but
it looks like that.
It does.
It looks like that. Anyways, that's it for us. You guys have a great day. We'll see you on the trail.